That means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for Outdrink the Coverage in 2023. The Cowboys lose 2 in a row. It's time to burn it down. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett, intern Noah here on the Grandeur Pet Solutions Outdrink the Coverage, where we talk all things Dallas Cowboys, now Houston Texans, a little Texas Bowl football stuff. I'll go ahead and tell you that the Dallas Maverick sale has been approved, Noe, just in case you were wondering about that. I know you had a couple sleepless nights as an accountant going through all the numbers. You were told something's not adding up, but hey, it worked. Also, breaking news here. The Denver Broncos have decided that their season is over, and they have benched Russell Wilson. You and I were talking about that as we started things. I don't get it. That tells me that Denver is saying that they're done with the Russell Wilson experiment.
Yeah, the explanation was financial flexibility, but the news just broke right before we started the show, so I don't really know the exact details. It does seem like they're tanking the last 2 games. They're very much in the thick of the playoff race. They did have a crushing loss on Sunday night to the Patriots, but they can still finish 9-8 and make the playoffs. Russell's having a fairly solid year, better than last year. So Jared Stidham, he looked pretty good last year for the Raiders in work when he replaced Derek Carr. So last year he replaced Derek Carr. This year he's replacing Russell Wilson. He might do well. They play the Chargers and I think the Raiders to close out the season, so they can still finish 9-8. But it broke too early for me, so I don't really know the exact reasons or what financial flexibility means.
You did just bring up a good point. They can win those 2 games without Russell Wilson. Yeah. So, and Jarrett Stidham, it's kind of funny. You also forget that at one point, people thought he was going to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady. So he's now replaced Tom Brady, replaced Derek Carr, replaced Russell Wilson. And the thing about Stidham, by the way, Stephenville, Texas's own Jarrett Stidham, he's one of those guys that is very alluring in small moments. And you think, hey, this could be a guy. He has a live arm. He can move. He makes good decisions at times, all that. But then every time, the more you get him snaps, the more you start seeing that's why he didn't quite ever reach the heights that a lot of people thought. Anyway, that's how you talk Dallas Cowboy football, by starting the show off talking Denver Broncos. Intern Noe, how are you doing? I know it's a sad day for you, not only because the Cowboys lost, but you basically had a fantasy football collapse over the weekend. You went in looking like you were going to win like 3 or 4, and it collapsed from there. But before we get to that, what are you drinking?
Well, I'm not doing well, so that's us already given. Cowboys lose. I'm only in 1 championship. I ran out of MD 2020, so I had to look
That's
for.
That's how tough this season's been.
Yeah. So Cowboys 5th loss. I had to search for something. I remembered you talking about a European drink with tea that included a shot of Stro.
Oh my God.
And that's what I'm having. I posted it on our Facebook page.
How's it taste?
I haven't tasted it yet. I'm waiting for you to tell me how you're doing and what you're drinking.
Well, my fantasy football is exactly like yours. I'm down to 1. I went 63 and 60 overall in all my leagues, which, the little teams might be happy with that. For me, that's a failure. We're going to reevaluate everything. Changes will be made. I'm benching Russell Wilson.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm benching Russell Wilson the rest of the year. The funny thing is the one that I made it in, is the one I showed you at the beginning of the year that they said you're going to win. Remember, I had Patrick Mahomes. You're going to roll the league.
Yeah.
I didn't. I finished fourth on a tiebreaker, but then proceeded to upset the number 1 seed last week. So I'm proud of that. But I'm drinking. I went back to 2021 with you. In 2019, got me a Sonic slushy with a little bit of Malibu rum in it.
Yeah.
It's a early morning here, but I'm basically off outside of posting the shows for the rest until the new year. So I wanted a slow drink today because I'm going to have some fun gaming after this and a lot of napping. And also I hurt my back during Christmas. So it's a good way to get rid of the pain of the Cowboys and the pain of the fantasy football. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the Cowboys. We're going to start there.
Buddy.
Oh yeah. Cheers. I want to hear how this tastes. I know how mine tastes. So you cheers. I want to see how this is.
Oh, I smell it.
Is it a good smell?
I put salted caramel black tea just to sweeten it up a little bit.
Oh, wow.
I don't put sugar or anything, but
yeah,
this black tea is actually pretty good. So I'm gonna try it. Here it goes.
There you go. Good luck, brother.
Yeah, I smelled it, but I don't taste it at all. That's dangerous. We might be able to make an iced tea version of this.
I don't know if we
should
want
not
to
put that into existence. I'm sorry.
I don't know if we want to. Hey, I'm glad it tastes. And the running, it's a running joke about it, but Stro does taste better than that damn diesel. I can't believe I found that. Sometimes you think at 48 I've matured and make better decisions in life. Hey, let me grab the diesel.
Over maybe for the off-season shows, I'll make an iced tea version of this and
right.
to try it.
We can do that and then watch back the show and realize we fall asleep about halfway through. And
do you like sweet tea, iced tea at all?
Oh hell yeah! I'm from East Texas. Why dare you ask me that question? Jesus Christ!
I know you like hot tea. I'm just.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, speaking of, I know this is a great topic for the show, but hey, if you listen to us, we do this. I'm actually spending this all season. We are getting a Keurig cup system here at the studio because the fiance works here sometimes and she likes to drink coffee. And so I'm getting a Keurig cup. And so this is going to be the winner of finding the coffees that I like. That's the great thing about those little K cups. You can try a one off. And so that's what we're going to do. Because I did during the playoffs this year have a cup of coffee in a hotel room while Grant and I were actually hung over the day before eating chicken wings and drinking all day. And I enjoyed the coffee, so it's made me actually want to try some. But you're right, I don't like hot drinks. And I also don't like teams that succeed, as the Dallas Cowboys lose last week. Go ahead.
I'm wearing a Ranger shirt today, baby.
I almost wore mine. My parents for Christmas, one of the things they got me was a nice collared Rangers World Series shirt. I almost wore it, but I remember the camera doesn't catch. But I did get the history of uniforms for the Dallas Cowboys here. The only thing bad, and this is the great thing about having a fiance that knows nothing about football. I don't have to tell her this. I mean, she won't know, but it doesn't have the newest one with the white helmet. So that's the only thing bad about it, but it's okay. It's okay. Same thing. My daughter got me a beautiful Hall of Fame Cowboy poster, and I didn't have the heart to tell her that, well, Cliff Harris isn't on it, so it's kind of now. But anyway, let's get into it. I'm sorry. It's been one of those mornings. I'm all over the place. What were your thoughts on the Cowboy game? Just as a fan, not getting into the interesting, just as a fan, what were your thoughts on the Cowboys game?
I loved how Dak played, but I wish we had Tyron Smith. You could literally, I heard Bradley Chubb's name over and over again. So it's just, I wasn't really even frustrated. It was an evenly matched game.
It was a fun game.
Fun game for those that are not Cowboy fans or Dolphins.
Well, I mean, even as a Cowboy fan, you're right. But I mean, I guess in this winter of discontent, I'm trying to do better about just watching the game as a fan and enjoying it, and just not, worry about the outcome when the outcome happens, and also just enjoy the moment, just enjoy the game for entertainment. But it's hard; they make it hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, it took. I take away good things from the game. It was a road loss, but Miami had to have a career day from Jason Sanders. He hit, I think, 5 field goals, and 3 of them were from over 50 yards, which he's never done.
Yep.
So I'll take it. It was still hard to see them lose the division lead, but
hey,
it is what it is. As long as Dallas is in the playoffs, everything starts from zero once you clinch.
You remember this? The last time the Dolphins beat the Cowboys on a holiday field goal, what happened the rest of that year? Exactly.
They never lost another game.
They never lost another game. Yeah, I feel like you do. I'm
Oh, and the
frustrated.
Dolphins lost out too.
Huh? Yeah, the Dolphins lost. People always forget that part of the
Yeah,
story.
Dolphins got to 9-2 that season. Marino was hurt, and they just could not do it with Scott Mitchell. They lost their final 5 games and missed out on the playoffs with a 9-7 record.
Yep. I I enjoyed the game as a fan. As a Cowboy fan, there was frustrating parts. I go back to what I've said for I say 3 years. I don't really count 2020, but uh, uh, but especially when Dan Quinn stepped in as defensive coordinator. This defense is great, but this is a lot of it just the NFL today. But I don't trust this defense against a good offense when you give that team, 75 yards and they need a field goal. I'm pretty sure they're going to get the field goal. And you that's fine that you give that stuff up. That happens. But very first play, Damone Clark.
Yeah.
You can't do those. I mean, that's the thing. And that's where I do go back to the Mike McCarthy thing that frustrates me. But look, this goes past Mike McCarthy. This has been a trend. And people say, yeah, but Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones has nothing to do with this. Just for whatever reason. Maybe it's a developmental issue or drafting of players that you take a little bit more talent over, with players who make more mistakes, but the talent's better. But the penalties have been an issue for the Cowboys for a long time now, but that's just one of those 1,000 times plays of, all right, so let's start that drive back over at 2nd and 1 and see what happened instead of 1st and 10 up at the 45. They basically had already won the game right there.
It kind of gives me 2018 Cowboy defense vibes where, some of the games they lost, they would basically hold the team to about 200 yards of total offense. And then that final drive. Yeah, they would get, like you said, 75, 80 yards and get a field goal to win the game. So statistically, it's a great defense. It's a great defense that can stop the pass. Having said that, they get too many penalties, too many clutch plays they don't convert. I'm starting to really think, same thing with 2018, that there might be a linebacker issue. It's just something where
it's different now. I think the linebacker issue now is just injuries and depth. But I will go back to this defense isn't built to stop the run. So I don't know if it's a linebacker issue as much as it's a scheme issue.
Well, with teams like Arizona and Buffalo this year who were patient and just kept running the ball, yeah, the Cowboys can't stop it. They'll only succeed if they can create turnovers on defense. And
blood in the water type defense.
Yeah, the offense needs to be humming to force that team to pass. Now, a team that can just dedicate to the run the entire game, yeah, they're going to win. It's almost a virtual win for the other team. So I'm not sure how it's going to work come playoff time. Maybe things will change. Sometimes it does for teams like 2010 Packers. They just went on a big run. 06 Colts, they went on a run.
Go to other sports. Rangers this year with their bullpen. And Rangers this year with their inability to come back. They had like one of the worst records in the history of baseball when trailing after 8 innings. Yeah. And what happens in the very first game of the World Series? You hit a walk-off home or a tying home run and a walk-off home run. And then, like I said, the bullpen was terrible all year, yet had one of the best bullpen runs of a team in a career in a postseason, and I think it was 20 years or something. So yeah, things can be fixed, but I also think it's time to go ahead. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, this is a long meandering show because I've got a lot of thoughts on all this because it all kind of ties together. I have been 100% that Dallas since about 2011 is absolutely one of the best teams at drafting now. I trust their picks. But I think it's time to admit that I don't know if it's the players or the position. The first 2 picks this year, I don't see making an impact in the NFL. Partly because for like was it Pender or whatever his name is, Schooner. Part of it is it's the same thing we were saying draft night was Jake Ferguson looks like he's ready to step up and become. Why are you wasting a pick there? You could have got, and I know it was a tight end heavy draft, but sometimes you got to trust who you have. And then Mozzie Smith, he cannot, and maybe he comes in next camp and he's, got tree trunk legs and all, but he just is not good. And I think it's safe to say that they kind of messed up the first 2 picks this year.
Well, Mozzie Smith, I was very high on just because he came from a really good school that's really all about stopping the run or just have a great defense in general. And Michigan has big guys all over the place from all three levels on defense. So I was very happy to get Mozzie Smith in the first round. I thought that was a good value pick, but this year one hasn't really showed up. I figured with Hankins on the other side, they could, he could mentor Mozzie, but then now Hankins is hurt and we're kind of getting exposed more. Luckily for Dallas, Miami kept it close because they just weren't scheming to run the ball as much. And when they did, defense in general did a fine job in minimizing the running effect.
Until that last drive.
Until the last drive, yeah. So
until that last drive on back-to-back third downs when you needed to make a stop.
Yeah.
And again, let's quantify that the Miami Dolphins offense is really, really good, and Dallas for the most part. But again, championship defenses, I don't care if you've given up 3 points or 73 points. If you're given the lead with 2 minutes left and you want to be a championship defense, you make that stop. Period. I mean, that's football right there. That is the game today. Is win that last drive. And
I agree with you, man. Hey, kudos to Miami. They got to 11 wins. They're one game away from winning the division, but they have to play Baltimore and they have to play the Bills. So Bills still are in contention to win the division and possibly get a 2 seed if things fall in place in the AFC.
And I want to say this about Tua. I know in our sports rehab, and I can't remember his name, the Dolphin fan likes to post to me anytime Tua has a good run. I never said Tua wasn't a good quarterback. I never understood this whole idea. And again, I think it's just we're in a hyperbolic era where every quarterback coming out's the next. Oh my God, he's transforming football. But in this game, Tua played well, but there are 5 or 6 throws that are so off target that if a Dallas safety just happened to read better or things like that, every quarterback misses. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say any quarterback's perfect, but you know what I mean. Some of those misses are just like by 10-yard windows at times.
Some were bad, and then there were some that were caused by the Cowboys defense.
Yes. No. Again, part of it was Cowboys defense.
There was a portion right before the Miami defense started getting to Dak where the Dallas defense was really getting to Tua on key third down, second down, and long attempts. So I was happy with that. And like you said, Tua's a great quarterback. He was there was some concerns with his injury issue in college, and then there was obviously last year with the concussions, there's issues with him staying healthy. He's not a small guy. I mean, he's like 6 foot, 6'1", 220, 225.
Well, so, and I think I think we've got to get over that whole that people think smaller people inherently get hurt more in a physical sport. That's literally not a proven thing. That's not. Now, a smaller guy will get overpowered more. Like you don't want, but as far as actually getting hurt, you can be 6'5". It's all genetics and luck. That's all any of that is.
It's funny. Both these teams are going to play 2 of the biggest games next week, Detroit and Dallas. Detroit's already got the division wrapped up.
Yeah, I mean, how big is that game now?
Oh, now they're playing for seeding because Detroit can get a 1 seed, and they haven't been in this position since 2014. Detroit's going to come in trying to win, and as long as
I agree with that, but I their chance of getting a 1 seed is literally like last week of the season, Dallas's chance of taking over the Eagles, and then they lost to Washington. People were trying to point to that, like, see, you can't win a big game when you need it. It was like, yeah, they really weren't going to clinch because the Eagles weren't going to get beat by the Giants.
If the Lions went out, there's a shot. The 49ers have to play the Rams again, and the Rams have won 5 of 6 games.
Hey, I love what the Rams are doing, and I was high on them all the way in week 3. San Francisco beats them by 4 touchdowns.
You know what? Honestly, I'll give you your flowers. You called it during this or before the season even started. The only one I'm proud about is the Bears because I said they get to about 7 wins and they're at 6 wins now. But you calling the Rams, I thought the Rams were going to be as bad as the Cardinals.
Hey, give me credit on Tampa Bay too.
I'm gonna pass over that now. I'll give you credit for Tampa, and I will give you credit for saying that the team with the best quarterback will win the NFC South.
Yeah,
we just got the wrong quarterback
apparently. I'll tell you this: I'm a little bit more afraid if Dallas has to go into Tampa week 1 or playoff week 1.
It's funny. This year, I was going to tell you the same thing. I'm more afraid this year than I was last year.
Yeah, yeah. I never thought that the game would go like it did last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm more afraid now. In saying that, I can also see Baker Mayfield transforming back into Baker Mayfield and throwing 6 interceptions because the pass rush is getting to him.
So next week is a big game for the Buccaneers. They have to go, though they actually host the Saints. If they can win that, they just have to go to the Carolina and win that game, and they'll get to 10 wins. They'll get the 4th spot. The Falcons, who are trailing and need Tampa to lose, they got a pretty good look with Taylor Heineke. He played mistake-free football, and you kind of saw what happens when that
But he
Falcon
won't keep doing that.
when Desmond Rip, like when you have a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, this Falcon team is actually they can hang with anyone in the NFL.
Yeah, but he never does that. They made Taylor the starter earlier in the year. Again, he's one of those. He's really good in moments. The bigger more snaps you get, the more you see the weaknesses and stuff.
I get it, but let's just assume they can copy and paste this every week. This is the Falcon team I was telling you about.
Yeah,
quarterback. That's a they can just game manage. They have Bijan. Bijan Robinson had over 90 yards receiving and 90 yards rushing.
yep.
That's the style I thought they were going to play this entire season. But problems persist. Like Bijan got hurt a couple of games. Desmond Ridder, for some reason, he was still a game manager, but he was still creating turnovers.
Yeah.
So to me, that was the reasons why they were losing these games. If they can just get mistake-free play at quarterback, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll get to 9 wins. It'll be tough right now. They lost some games they shouldn't have lost, but if they can win their final 2 games, they're going to make that NFC South division race pretty tight. And at least someone's going to have a winning record, hopefully.
Well, right now it's Tampa Bay's like going on the probabilities like 97% chance of, so it's basically theirs to win, which I think that's what's going to happen. Because like you said, for Tampa, it's just you don't even have to worry about Atlanta as long as you take care of your business.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the NFC South race right now, it's Tampa is the only team with a winning record. They play New Orleans next week at home. They win that. They've eliminated New Orleans from the division race. Atlanta is going to have to win their final 2 games and hope Tampa loses one of their 2 games just to even have a shot at this point.
Well, now there is still a path that they get in as a wild card too. I mean, Atlanta and the Vikings and the Seahawks and the Rams are all 8-7, 8-7, 7-8, 7-8. Packers are 7-8. Saints are 7-8. So even as crazy as this sounds, there isn't, and it's not even a crazy scenario, but there is a chance a South team gets the second or a wild card team.
And good job, Matt Eberflus. Even at the number 12 spot, the Chicago Bears at 6-9 still have an outside shot of making it in. So they have to win out, but they have an outside.
They have to win out and have a lot of help too. Best they can finish is 8-9. Dallas hasn't quite locked up the 5th seed. They need, but they will through process of.
Because the Cowboys have already beaten the Rams and the Seahawks, so they have the tiebreaker over them.
Yeah.
So assuming all 3 of those teams finish 10-7, Dallas would still have the tiebreaker based off the head-to-head.
And that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, they have clinched the 5 spot at worst because Minnesota is 7-8.
The thing that I'm looking at from NBC Sports just has them clinch their playoff spot, but not the 5th seed. Like they lock them in as soon as they clinch a seed.
Dallas. I mean, they're not locked in at the 5 spot. They could still win the division and get a top 4 seed, but
I mean, they're not locked in at the 5 spot period. Like even
if they can't finish below that based off the head-to-head tiebreakers.
But you're assuming that you're thinking of 1-to-1s, but when you start getting into if 3 teams all finish with a 9-8, or if 4 teams all finish with a 9-8.
True, but like Dallas already has 10 wins. The worst they can finish is 10-7.
I mean 10-7. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh, you're right.
That's what I'm saying. They just haven't said it yet.
I'm not adding. Well, no. Again, no. Still, if the Cowboys, the Rams, and the Seahawks all finish tied, which can still happen.
Yeah.
It's not just the Cowboys beat the Rams and also the Rams and Seahawks thing starts to come into play. It's not a one-on-one. It's a group tie. So you have group tie scenarios.
Well, I'm saying the Cowboys have beaten both those teams this year.
But it's still a threesome thing though. So whatever happens between the Rams swept the Seahawks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, right? They have swept the Seahawks. Yeah. So the Rams have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks.
And I think if I'm not, I don't think the NFL, and I always get confused because I have so many tiebreaker stuff to have to work. Because so in Texas high school football, there is not a universal tiebreaker.
Right.
Each district decides their tiebreakers.
As
And
we watched in Friday Night Lights, it's just a coin flip, right?
sometimes that's very rare. That doesn't happen. But yeah, that really did happen that year, though. By the way,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a rare thing. So I don't know if the NFL, like in UIL, when it's 3 teams, it's not you beat them, they beat them. It's a group thing, and I kind of think the NFL does it anyway. Either way, Dallas is going to get the 5 seed. We're already,
You still
none of
have
these
2008 in your head for college football.
Oh God, don't even that bothers me more than losing the 09 championship game. Anyway, quit getting me off the path. Damn you, son of a bitch. So going back to the Cowboys, on the show notes, I had asked you to bring this up because I think this has changed. Again, I tell you, this is a meandering show, so we're going all over the place. What right now?
Yeah.
I'm not talking what ifs. I'm talking no matter what happens, what are the odds that Mike McCarthy is back as head coach?
100%.
See, I agree. Thank you. I thought maybe I've noticed that this year alone, the only chatter you're hearing about, well, if they don't, win the first round, or if they don't finally get to the NFC title game, all that's only coming from the outside. Yeah. I think Dallas is 100% happy with Mike McCarthy as their head coach.
Honestly, like at the beginning of the season, I was thinking the same thing, but as the season goes on, I started really thinking about it. I'm like, if they win their final 2 games, they'll be 12-5
again.
Yeah. It'll be their 3rd straight year winning 12 games. They'll be their 3rd straight year in the playoffs, and this is the best run since, unfortunately, Barry Switzer.
Well, now, yeah, it's the best run, and it's 3 straight at least 10 win seasons, which hasn't been done since the 90s, along with, as you said, the multiple playoffs in a row since the 90s.
And I can't even think of another coach outside of Landry that's had 3 straight season of 12+ wins.
That's a good point. And now you can, adding 1 game doesn't really affect the record that much on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Look, this might be an era that people look back 20 years from now and just be like, man, Dallas was just unlucky that, they were good, but they were slotted in. And in today's football, I don't know. I just feel like he's back. I feel like I think it would take them completely collapsing the next 2 games and then just getting not only beaten Tampa, but beat. Like if for the next 3 games, the offense only scores 10 points combined and they get beat, 27-3, 27-3, and 21-0. And okay, then I think maybe he's gone. But I think other than that, and to be honest with you, I'm perfectly fine with Mike McCarthy as the head coach. I mean, yeah, some things he does frustrates me, but every coach, there's not a coach out there that's not like that. I mean, hell, Andy Reid is still terrible when it comes to clock management a lot of times. But I like what he's done with the team. I think Dallas still has a really young team that is still got a lot of upside no matter what happens this year.
I will say this. If they lose on Saturday night, Monday Night Football to the Lions and, beat the Commanders, and then they lose in the first round to Tampa, whoever comes out of the South, I'll be a little jaded. I'll feel about the offseason like I feel right now about my fantasy football season. Great season overall, but it just felt like a dud. And, I feel kind of directionless going. I'm not sure where to go at this point.
After this show, we're going to talk about some things, buddy. I think this goes past fantasy football and the Cowboys. Oh, I see the tears as you're laughing.
Dude, okay. I got to say this, man. I was in 4 leagues this year, and both outdranked the coverage leagues. I was the number 1 seed.
And you got beat.
Destroyed.
Yep.
Amari, curse word Cooper,
killed
me in 1 league. And then the other, my team just didn't show up. The only league I'm in the championship in is the league I started with my company, and I was a 6th seed. Barely got in, upset the 1 because
that always happens, man.
Yeah, I just had 1 good week. Puka Nacua went off, Breece Hall went off, Joe Flacco went off because of Amari Cooper. That's propelled me to a win. And then my opponent had a bunch of duds from his star players that typically, did well. He was the number 1 seed, so
yeah.
And then the dynasty league I'm in, I just didn't start Jason Sanders, and I started Darren Waller instead of Logan Thomas. So
I mean, that was a crapshoot. You kind of thought Waller coming back first game that they would hit him a lot, and I get that. Yeah, it's been a crappy fantasy. Going back to the Cowboys, I agree with you if they lose, but if they lose to the Eagles or the Niners, okay. Well, actually, more than look, I'll say this: I feel better about Dallas after the Miami game than I felt about them after the Philadelphia game. Like I walked away from that Miami game going, okay, I think in the NFC, as long as Dallas, and this is a Dallas team that still had a fumble at the goal line, had too many penalties, just too many penalties at the worst time, but they still held the best offense at home to those points, and it wasn't even touchdowns, it was field goals. I feel really good about Dallas going into the playoffs, no matter
Even in
what
the
happens.
Philadelphia game, they were 5 yards away from winning that game, and
Yep.
at the link. So yeah, in this game they didn't have Tyron Smith. Vic Fangio, excellent defensive mind. He dialed up the pressure more. Van Ginkel was all up in that backfield, and then Bradley Chubb was really in that
Oh yeah.
backfield in the second half. So having said all that, Dallas put themselves in position to still win thanks to Dak's heroic efforts, and it just is what it is, man. It's a really good team. They're a top 5 rushing and passing offense, number 1 offense in the football home game. So I'm satisfied with what Dallas did. I wish Dallas got the win, but I think we'll be okay going forward.
You bring up I want to say this, and I thought Greg Olson did a really good job of pointing this out. The backup tackle, I can't even remember who it was.
Chuma?
He wasn't physically getting beat by Bradley Chubb. They were just alignment, and like he pointed out that one, I didn't like them going for the pass anyway after they got it to the goal line. I don't understand why they tried to play action pass. That's fine. But as he pointed out, Chubb didn't beat him. For some reason, he turned in on a very obvious, you've got outside shoulder. I mean, you could tell by his setup, you've got outside shoulder. But hey, and give Fangio credit, that linebacker flashed in front of him. He flinched, and that's all it takes. He should have had his eyes only on Chubb the whole time. And so I feel better in that because that's teachable stuff. It wasn't like the Atlanta Falcons game from 2016 or 2017.
2017, yeah.
And by the way, that I know that's the improvement of Dak too, because in that Falcon game, and this was a Dak that had very little true, like he had terrible games. Remember, this was still early Dak that was doing everything right and all that. And all of a sudden, the line can't block, and he's getting killed. And I think it took him almost a year to get past that. I think there was a mental thing about that game. This game, same thing. He's getting hit every snap, and every snap he's just responding. He's just responding. That 17-play drive, it'll get lost because they lost, but that was an epic drive. That could have easily been that defining drive for him, like Romo beating the Seahawks in 2014 on the road. And that goes to show why it's tough to put all that on a quarterback, because it still took his defense making a stop. And this defense, again, just when they need it against these teams, tend to not make the stop. And that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, man. All Dallas can do now is just learn from what happened in this game, and then just at least they got some home cooking coming up. They play Detroit. It'll be a tough matchup. As a fan, I'm hoping that Detroit winning the division title for the first time since I started watching football in '93 will. Usually, you want to play teams that are kind of coming off a big high, because there's usually a big letdown going forward. Like kind of like when the Dallas beat Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, and then they went to Buffalo. It was almost like just a big letdown. You kind of want to play Detroit at this point in time, especially at home when you're undefeated. So
I want to bring up Detroit because Detroit is teetering. The Jaguars have went in full collapse, 90% of it because of injuries, but the Jaguars are just hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And I still contend that if Minnesota had Kirk Cousins, we're seeing a different end of this season. But I don't fear Detroit. I think they're actually, especially at home, I think they're a good matchup for Dallas. Detroit's defense is opportunistic, but if they're not, just like Dallas's, they tend to struggle. The difference is, I think Dak has done a better job this year against the blitz and things like that, and pressure. Jared Goff still turtles when the pressure starts to get hard, and that's his weakness. That right there is when he's bad.
And kudos to Detroit having a really good offensive line. For the most part this season, Goff has remained upright. So
yeah, but you
when he's
saw
upright, against Green Bay, it was a different story. But if Goff is upright, this team can compete with anybody in the whole NFL. So that's the dangerous part of Detroit. But you see what happens against a Green Bay Packers or Baltimore earlier in the year. Dallas offers that same type of pass rush. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen Saturday. I do feel it's a Cowboys bounce back win, especially the home cooking. They haven't lost a game in a couple years, so
And
yeah.
for all the talk about Detroit playing for a 1 seed, I mean, in theory, so is Dallas. I mean, Dallas has not been eliminated from the 1 or 2 seed yet.
Yeah, Dallas would need 49ers to lose their final 2 games.
But I'm just but it's the same thing. I mean, Detroit's chances of getting the 1 seed are almost a little bit better than Dallas's, but not a lot. That's my point. It's not like Dallas has nothing to play for and Detroit has everything to play for. Dallas should be able to. I don't see this where Detroit's outmatching their energy. Or they shouldn't be, especially after Dallas losing 2 games in a row. You don't want to lose 3 games in a row, then have Washington, which no matter what you do, I just feel that the talk has kind of been, well, Detroit has something to play for and Dallas doesn't, and that's just not true. Dallas, I mean, especially with the way the Eagles are playing. I mean, hell, the Eagles took a comfortable win against the Giants and made it really, really scary there for the last couple moments. And it wasn't fluke; it was valid. Again, the issues that the Eagles have had all year came up to bite them in that game. And for the Giants, man, can we please stop with it? Can we understand now that no, Tommy DeVito's not going to save the franchise? He's not a Tony Romo. None of that. He's a fun quarterback, but he's going to be one of those guys that's a trivia question 5 years from now.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor's lasted this long in the league for a reason. He's a solid backup. DeVito struggled against the Eagles. Luckily, Taylor came in, provided some consistency on the offensive side. They got a couple of breaks on defense in the second half. The Eagles won. I mean, it was kind of funny because you heard the fans chanting, "Run the ball, run the ball." Sirianni and company didn't really listen until the end where they started feeding it to Gainwell and then finally get it to Swift. It's just kind of funny that they were very stubborn in not wanting to run the ball when their team. I know Dickerson was out. I know their offensive line's a little banged up, but this team is geared to really run the ball, and then that sets up the the big play to AJ Brown. You there, Terry? Okay. Well, anyway, Eagles Christmas night they beat the New York Giants 33-25.
I'm back. I don't know what happened there. The way we record is through an in-browser thing, and it's awesome. It saves a lot of space on the computer and all, but the one negative is when your browser crashes. I don't know if we stopped recording there or not. We'll find out.
We're still going.
We're still going. All right. So obviously, whatever you said was so blowhard that it. I was just about to say this. It's funny though. Yeah. Doesn't it feel like everything around the Eagles is starting to kind of become Cowboy-esque? Like, what's wrong with the Eagles? There's an article, and this is what caused my browser to crash. Eagles still feeling the effects of the awkward Jonathan Gannon's departure. I didn't know that was an awkward departure. I thought he just took a different head coaching job.
Yeah. I know Steichen got the job with the Colts before Gannon got the job with the Cardinals, but it was a little bit of delay in that, but I don't remember or recall there ever being like a riff or a awkwardness. He had the bad game in the Super Bowl, but that's just because they couldn't generate a pass rush. Also because, the Chiefs had at the time Andrew Wiley, who kind of negated a couple of those Eagles pass rush, like Reddick and company.
I thought it was the cleats.
Oh, the cleats. Okay.
All the cleats. But anyway, the thing that helps the Eagles is they finish with the Cardinals and the Giants. That's the thing that saves them as far as, the end of the season. Or I think there could be I still feel that if Dallas plays the Eagles, I'm not scared of that game. First off, I know the road woes and all, but they're going into a place that they're very, very comfortable with. I mean, every player on Dallas goes to Philly every year.
Now the weather might be different this time.
Yeah, but I don't think I think that's one of those things that, and I know Dallas struggles to stop the run, but I don't know if that's going to hurt Dallas as much as it would hurt Philly, because I still feel that a lot of what Philly does run wise is predicated on their passing game has to be good. Yeah. And if their passing game isn't good, their running game, and that's what we saw against Dallas. They couldn't run the ball because they couldn't pass the ball. But I do think it's kind of funny that the shine is kind of coming off that Eagle coaching staff and Nick Sirianni and all that. And it's like people are now, like I saw something on YouTube. I didn't watch it. The Eagles running high school offense, things like Jalen Hurts is now starting to get flack again. Not Joe Flacco because he's over in Cleveland. Hey, speaking of, what are the odds that we see a Joe Flacco Super Bowl with Cleveland? But what is even more enjoyable to me would be a Joe Flacco versus Baltimore playoff game.
Because it would be in Baltimore. That would be, new Cleveland versus old Cleveland. That would be great. Joe Flacco playing against his old team. He's having a great run right now. He's unflappable. Like, he's the same guy every week, which really helps in the playoffs because he just has he's not anxious. He's just calm. He's another Joe Cool type guy. And he's just it just like he can have a 10-6 regular season, but then he'll throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in the playoffs.
Well, and it feels like Cleveland, and I contend to this. We were talking about this before with rookie quarterbacks. Yeah. It feels like Cleveland just didn't try to say, okay, we're going to pare things down. No, they're like, you're Joe Flacco. Go run our offense. Yeah. And
he won a Super Bowl in 2012. Mm-hmm. This is probably the most talented offense he's been around.
That's a good point as far as wide receivers and everything. I agree 100%.
So, yeah, I'd like to see what happens when he actually gets more time with them. And obviously, they're going to probably make the playoffs. They have 10 wins. They're the only wild card with 10 wins right now. So it's almost a virtual guarantee they're going to make the playoffs. They need to take care of business against one of his former teams, the New York Jets, on Thursday.
Yeah, that's, Jets are just good enough to do. Now, in saying that, the Jets owners have come out and said that everybody's safe in the front office, a lot of safe. So you might see them go, okay, let's look at some development stuff because we're not trying to win to look pretty. Let's go for development stuff. So they might, but my question to you is Joe Flacco starting next year somewhere? Do you think this, because I don't know if he really wanted to retire as much as teams didn't want him. And now I think there will be teams calling him. I'll tell you this. I would be, as a Cowboy fan, a little nervous if, say, Washington or the Giants signed Joe Flacco for next year as a starting quarterback.
Yeah. Again, like he's the same guy, whether it's regular season or playoffs. He'll be 39 next year.
But he's a thrower. He's not trying to move around or anything.
Yeah, and he makes quick decisions. And for someone his size, he has pretty nimble feet.
Yeah.
So
good in the pocket.
Yeah. So whoever he goes to is going to probably be in position to make the playoffs at minimum.
I would think a fringe playoff team needing a quarterback.
I'm not sure if Washington would pick him up. I don't know how they feel about Howell. He hasn't really shown up.
Well, they benched him, so I think that tells you how they feel about him.
Yeah, I think Jacoby Brissett's going to start next week for the Commanders. So.
And as of now, going to start the rest of the year, supposedly. Look, okay. Sam Howell's I told you this at the beginning of the year. I don't understand why. Of course, Ron Rivera didn't know that the franchise was going to be sold. He didn't realize that he would basically – because I think Daniel Snyder felt safe with Rivera. I think Rivera could have pulled a Garrett and stayed there for a while under Snyder. But now that's not going to happen. But I never understood the Sam Howell decision at the beginning of the year. You had a defense that made the playoffs for you last year. You had a defense that at the time could make the playoffs for you this year. You have enough offensive talent. I mean, golly, go sign a Joe Flacco. Somebody to compete with Sam Howell in training camp. And I know 7 or 4 weeks ago, he led the league in passing, and that was, oh my God, Sam Howell. But again, the more snaps you give players like that, they start to show where their weaknesses are.
Yeah. The Commanders have the talent that's good. They need to be more turnover creators on defense. But I mean, overall, they have a really good team. They just need the quarterback. And
but they destroyed their line.
Another thing you called in the offseason, they were a quarterback away. Mm-hmm. And this is a team that could have been 12-5 or 5-12, just depending on their quarterback. And they're leaning toward 5-12 this year. Howell's not the answer. It's kind of unfortunate because they had a promising team. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Rivera or Eric Bieniemy. I mean, they've had these big deficits the last couple of games, but they've come back. They almost beat the Jets this weekend, and they hung with the Rams the week prior. So the offense still has talent. They still have. I mean, Bieniemy is still doing a decent job. It's just
Yeah, I mean, if you're not scoring in the 2 quarters, and you're the part of the reason why you're having to try to make these valiant 4 touchdown comebacks.
right.
I don't think Eric Bieniemy's on the team next year unless he's a head coach. Simply because I don't think they keep Rivera. New owners, new general manager, they want a fresh start.
Yeah.
Ron Rivera has done nothing to say, okay, we want to keep him through that. I could see them doing the Jerry Jones maybe and hiring a coach, and it's like you have to keep Bieniemy. If they do that, that tells me you go defensive coordinator type again. But usually teams do the opposite. Ron Rivera is the defensive coach. Usually you alternate when
Yeah.
you're changing. It's very rare to go back to back when you're firing a coach as far as style.
So you can
I don't
see,
think, huh?
you can see either Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Lions, taking
Yeah,
that
big.
job,
Yeah.
or they'll promote Eric Bieniemy to that role.
Again, I don't know if the new owners want Bieniemy simply because he was, I'm not trying to use a Trump term, but poison the water, being with the staff before.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know if Eric Bieniemy's done enough for this year when he's the only guy calling the plays.
Yeah.
I mean, he's part of the Sam Howell discussion. Like, why did y'all think that Sam Howell was the guy that, without any competition? I get it if you go, hey, we're expecting him to start. We want him to be the number one. But sorry, somebody's like parked right outside the studio. We're expecting him to be number one, but we signed Joe Flacco or somebody to push him, and they didn't. And I don't believe in burning years. Again, we go back to the beginning of the show. Denver sitting Russell Wilson when they have a valid playoff shot. I don't understand that. If they get into the playoffs, that still doesn't make it a great decision. I mean, it means you just happened to it worked. I don't understand sitting down a Super Bowl winning quarterback when right now starting in the league only because Joe Flacco came back out of retirement. We have what? 4? 3? Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, and Joe Flacco. That's it. That's the only Super Bowl winning starting quarterbacks right now, right? Yeah.
Tom Brady and Manning won
retired.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying right now. So you're sitting down 25% group of a select that we say is the most important thing in football and in all of sports right now might be quarterback. Yeah. You're sitting down the guy that's got the skins on the wall. It makes no sense to me. And I know we're going back to that, but I told you this is a meandering show. It's our show. We can go talk about the hell we want about. That's what happens when I get Malibu rum, bitches.
I did love how the Broncos did look on Sunday Night Football, though. They had the white helmet with the orange. Yeah, that was pretty nice. And the white end zone, too.
I'm going to go back to what I said, though. The NFL, do what y'all did in 94. And a lot of people don't understand that Thanksgiving technically is supposed to be a throwback weekend. Like usually they don't announce that enough. But if you're going to have one team wear their whatever, have the other team, if they have one, wear it too. That'd look so cool to have the orange top, white helmet versus it would have been the all white, or you could even went red pants, Patriot Pat look from the Patriots. Having Detroit with the alternate and then the Patriots with their normal just made the normal look that much worse. And I'm one of those that think the Patriots uniforms tired too. I never liked the change in the first place, but I really think everything that on their jersey looks 2002 to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit outdated. It's almost as outdated as the Broncos look, but we'll see. I think a lot of fans like the Patriot Pat look, or it's just coming back more in style. I do love when they decorate the field with the Patriot Pat, the white and red end zone, and the Patriot Pat at the 50-yard line. So
kudos to all the fields doing that this year, because it's not just wearing the uniform. Like the Eagles have went with multiple. The Giants, especially, the first time they wore the throwbacks, they had more of the 70s look with the red end zone, and then the last time they did it a couple weeks ago, they had the old school 80s helmet and the blue end zones, just like the 80s. The ones that we and you too in the early 90s. When I think of the Giants, I still think of Meadowlands and just that. Yeah. That it being 25 degrees and the turf as hard as concrete. So kudos to the fields too. Buffalo Chargers, that's an easy one, man. They can't really mess that up where, the Chargers have got it so good that when they wear the least liked one, which is the very navy blue one, they wear it so little that when you see it, it's like, oh, that is actually kind of nice. That's not a bad look. It's just the worst in a great look. Whenever they designed San Diego way back in the 60s in the AFL days, they got it completely right. Like that, they have the perfect look in football, in my opinion.
They do. It's really hard for me to not like their outfit. And speaking of them, they had a pretty competitive game. Giff Smith, they came in with a new is the interim coach for the Chargers right now. Brandon Staley was fired the week prior. They came in with a new scheme. They almost beat the Bills. They were up. I mean, Bills needed a game-winning field goal at the
Is
end.
that shocking though? I mean, that's to me as much as the bit. Well, it's also the Chargers, even without Justin Herbert, have talent, but that's the Bills in a nutshell. You beat an NFC team at home, a good NFC team at home, you dominate them, and then you go on the road against a really crappy AFC team and you kind of struggle. But let me ask you this. Let's flip the Chargers over in the NFC. I think they're a 4 or 5 seed. I mean, again, this is all that talk about the AFC, NFC. This is the AFC. You and I said we thought that last year the AFC was going to be really, really good, and then it turned out to not be. And then this year we thought maybe they were going to take a step back, but yet they have really, really good teams, and they're all, it seems like, with backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Houston, they won a game with Case Keenum. The Colts, Gardner Minshew has been their quarterback basically the entire season.
Hey, let me ask you about Houston.
Okay.
Does how Houston has played since Stroud got hurt, does that take away from you the overall, like, what DeMeco Ryans has done and Houston as a franchise, or do you just, that all goes together?
I think they've had a great season. Even if they lose to the Titans and Colts to finish the season, I think they've had a great season. Right now they're 8-7. They were, I think, 3-14 last year, or 4-13. I don't remember what the record was, but it was pretty bad. All the additions they've had, new head coach, new philosophy. CJ Stroud played way better than I thought. He was a fringe MVP candidate up until the point he got hurt.
And I almost, the injury proves that, because I mean, look how bad they've been. Even in their win, they were absolutely terrible offensively. And then Cleveland, man, Cleveland is the team. You and I were talking about this. I don't know, man. They're just starting to kind of bubble to where every 20 years we get and I know Phil Simms played part of the year, but the Jeff Hostettlers, we get the Washington with whatever QB they threw in the moment, we get that run. And I mean, you look at everything else Cleveland does, they do it really, really well. Like that defensive line is still good. That defense in general is still good. Even the running game with Jerome Ford now running, he's still good. I don't want to go into Cleveland, or I don't know if I want Cleveland to come into my place and with Joe Flacco. I kind of feel like they might be a dark horse Super Bowl team. I really believe that.
Yeah, unfortunately, because Lamar Jackson was healthy all year, they'll have to go on the road. Baltimore's probably going to clinch the playoffs this weekend. They'll probably beat Miami. If they don't, they'll win the next week. Having said that, this team is mentally tough. Kevin Stefanski's done a great job the last 4 years with this team. I think they win their first round matchup, the 4-5 game. I think it's going to go to them. Just curious to see who they play in the divisional round. This is a really good team. I've been really impressed with them all year. They have the best defense in football, and pass rush like that, especially with Myles Garrett, he'll be in the Hall of Fame 5 years after he retires. It's just a team that's just going to be really tough to beat. And
I'm kind of on board. I have Cleveland friends and I want to root for them, but then I also do not like how they did the Deshaun Watson thing, so I want to root against them. And it's,
But you love Joe Flacco now.
I've always loved Joe Flacco. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Joe Flacco. He pulled one of those where he had that, Joe Flacco was great about having these 4-week stretches. And he pulled one of them off right in the middle of a fantasy football playoff run for me. And I was in one of those leagues that we started the playoffs, like 8 teams got in. So we had a 3-week playoff process. And he hit on, I think in that 4 weeks, he was like, 1,200 yards and 10 TDs. Just one of those, how he would get in those streaks. Oh, yeah. And by the way, he can also get out of those streaks really quick. And that's why Joe Flacco, as funny as we all call him Joe Ice and Joe Cool, he was so inconsistent with how good he was. He never was completely terrible, but you never knew if you're going to get 3 weeks of 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, or you're going to get 3 weeks of 180 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. But I'm just saying, Cleveland is built to weather a bad quarterback game.
Was he your AFC Jameis Winston?
No, he never threw enough interceptions. Jameis, man, you got a 30-30, brother. That's I mean, look, let's be honest. Jameis Winston should have been quarterback of the Raiders from 1973 to 79. Like, he would have fit in well there because he was Kenny Stabler with crab legs. I mean, and just, anyway, I love Jameis. My heart's a flutter. I'm also 48. Maybe I just need to go get that checked out. But anyway, so we're roaming now. Let's see. Vegas beats Kansas City. First off, Christmas Day football was fun. I know it's on. I know it's because it's Monday, and it sucks because if they only do it on weekends, we're talking 8 years before we get another weekend on like a true Christmas. I wish they would do the 3 games every Christmas, just like they do Thanksgiving. It was fun. It's fun now with technology because me and the fiance were in East Texas for Christmas morning. We wake up, we drive back so we can have dinner with her family, and we leave right at 11:45. Perfect. That's why I love my fiance. She actually looked up the time because she wanted me to be able to watch the game, and that's what I did as she drove. And that's fun. We have that technology, and it was fun to just kind of have football playing on in the background like I do for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's great just to have that, and just probably, you're just sitting in the passenger seat watching ridiculous end to the first half where the Raiders got
I didn't get to see that one part because we're going through cell hell. So all I got from you was he missed, and you updated the score at halftime. So I didn't even see what happened there.
It was back-to-back defensive scores for the Raiders. I just couldn't even believe, like, the last one was just a pick six, and Jack Jones was just looking straight at Patrick Mahomes and just kind of trash talking without trash talking. But you're watching that game like, okay, Mahomes is about to get 5 touchdowns in the second half, but it just didn't happen. The more I was watching the game, like, you could see that they're missing stuff on offense, and it's kind of frustrating them. Like, Kelsey's not making some of the plays he was making last year.
Too much of that Taylor Poonang getting into him.
The Taylor what, sir?
Poonang.
The funny thing is they're still 9-6. They're still in control of the AFC West.
They're still a favorite simply because of who they have at quarterback. Because as we're talking about, there's going to be multiple teams going into the playoffs who are not. And yeah, Joe Flacco's great, but like we said, he's 39 or he's 38 right now. He basically can look great, but he's also looked terrible, and he's looked terrible this year. So, I mean, even on the road, I don't know if I go against the Patrick Mahomes team or an Andy Reid team because he's going to find a wrinkle or two that we haven't seen in the regular season.
Right now, they're slotted as the 3 seed. If Miami loses out and Kansas City wins out, they could be at the 2 seed. Mahomes has still not played a road playoff game in his career. Very possible it could happen this season.
It will this year.
Yeah, just assume that Baltimore doesn't, crap the bed in the division round like they did in 2019.
Well, I was about to say, if it's if it's Baltimore, Baltimore will get a bye, but if it's Miami in that second round or that second seed and Kansas City's in the third, it wouldn't shock me if Miami loses it won't shock me if anybody loses in the first round in the AFC. The AFC, to me, the NFC, I still think plays out San Francisco, Philadelphia, Dallas. Somewhat of those, 2 of those teams end up in the NFC title game, with one, one of those teams eliminating one and the other one eliminating the other. In the AFC, every scenario is up in play. I can see any team, and I'm talking Houston. You give me Houston and CJ Stroud in a hot hand going up against Joe Flacco and, going up against backup, Jake Browning of Cincinnati. I'm going to take the rookie and how well they've played this year. So AFC's crazy.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh, is Mason Rudolph back? He had a great game on Saturday against the Bengals. They're back in the playoffs hunt. Mike Tomlin might still end up with a winning record this season. So I don't know what's going to happen in the AFC, but the Raiders are still in contention. The Broncos are still in contention.
I want to say this. Mark this down. 12/27/2023.
Okay.
This is the season that, at least for the AFC, we have seen the 100% pure parity that the salary cap has been building towards. that I still think would have been higher, but we had a couple iconic quarterbacks with Manning and Brady keep it more of still superpowers.
Yeah.
But the AFC this year, there is not one team that's a superpower. They're all better than any team in the NFC, but not one team is a superpower.
Yeah, because like in the Baltimore's losses, you saw some of their flaws. They looked like world beaters against the 49ers only because of Brock Purdy's 4 turnovers, but that's just a one-off. But that won't be this. If they play again in the Super Bowl, that won't happen again. Purdy won't turn the ball over 4 times. It'll be a whole
You
different
sure?
story. Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
pretty sure.
he's kind of that, and it's not fair to do this, but I mean, isn't that what he did? I'm trying to verify before I say that. Oh, that's the wrong one. I'm on
Oh,
the
and
wrong
one of the
page.
losses this year to the Browns.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm
I know
on the
he was.
Ravens.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh. I was saying I know he had a pretty bad game against the Browns, but that was more weather related. The Viking game, okay, you could probably give that to him. There was another loss too, but I can't remember. But,
The Cincinnati, he threw two interceptions. I thought there was another one where he threw multiple.
yeah, that was a bad game by Purdy. Yeah.
I thought. No, I guess I thought there was another one. You keep using the weather excuse this year. I don't get that anymore.
I know it affects both teams. But you could clearly see it affecting Purdy more than I think. I don't even think Watson was playing that game. I think it was someone else.
No, he played that game. That was his last game he played. Remember, he got hurt, and then the next week that's when he said that there was kind of coming out that, oh, maybe he's a pussy. You know, the medical's like, we don't understand what's wrong with your shoulder. You're fine. And then he goes out 2 weeks later, and they're like, hey, sorry, your shoulder's out. That's still a weird thing. That man right there. You want to talk about the 30s for him. Speaking of, real quick, we're gonna advertise this as we're getting close to winding down, but we're having fun. We're gonna do one of our all season shows. We know we're gonna do this year we're gonna talk about the 30 for 30 of the 1997 Heisman race and talk about the Heisman race too as well, because I have a lot of opinions about that I've never even shared with you. That's one of my seminal football moments you remember in life. For some reason, that season stuck out for me. It's one of my favorite college football seasons. So we'll talk about that. But anyway,
okay, interesting.
Oh, and by the way, the league season 4 that we recorded in the summer finally drops here this week or this month. What other games you want to finish up with?
Let's look here. We were talking about the Rams a little bit being on a roll. Seattle kind of saved their playoffs or playoff opportunities. Talk about Detroit, Jets, Washington, meaningless game, but Brees Hall had a great game.
Well, you're seeing again why I understand 100% the Jets, what they did with keeping the front office.
Yeah,
because I still think that next year with Aaron Rodgers, this team immediately becomes a top 3 seed threat in the AFC East.
fantasy-wise, if Rodgers is healthy, Brees Hall is going to have a monster year.
Yep. I mean, Brees Hall is maybe the most underrated running back right now going in the NFL.
Green Bay Packers also saved their playoff hopes. Jordan Love is looking more like Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, just the way his mannerisms, the way he's carrying himself. Now it was against the Panthers, but
Panthers have a good pass defense, but hey, Bryce Young starting to finally feels like some things have clicked right there. And I know the Green Bay defense isn't, world beaters, but they're not terrible. And I mean, like against Dallas, Bryce Young just looked so terrible. And again, I'm not even crediting in Dallas; he just looked bad. Like that was the first time I'd seen 65 straight snaps of him in one game, and he looked bad. I got to watch almost all the Green Bay game, and man, he's starting to figure it out.
Yeah, he is. Falcons, as long as they have I already talked about like them having a mistake-free quarterback, they can compete with anybody. Pittsburgh bounced back. Ravens 49ers were the game of the week, and it just turned into a blowout.
Doesn't it feel like all of them do now? I think there's partly. I mean, that's one of the things I guess why I enjoyed the Cowboy Dolphin game, even though it was a loss. That went down to the last 2 minutes. Holy crap! You've drawn. Somebody's gonna have a nap after this. But it just seems like, and I'm not even saying this is wrong. It just seems like a team now. If things get down on them quick, they just like, all right, we're out. We're good. We don't want to just, we're not going to keep throwing crap against the wall. And because it just seems like teams fold. And I don't mean like they're pussies or they're weak. It just feels like they go, okay, we're getting our ass kicked. We might as well just pack it in and let's worry about it. Because I don't feel like any of the great games have been great. But then we get crazy games out of nowhere, like New England and Denver, which that should have been ugly, and yet New England pulls it out. And I don't know, maybe saves Belichick's job.
I don't know. I think it'll be a mutual parting of ways. I kind of want to see Belichick somewhere else and kind of like prove himself. I've been kind of a fan of him since Brady. I mean, I've always been a fan of him, like respect wise, but like I really started to like him more now that Brady's not there. I'm kind of rooting for him to do well again. The last game we haven't really talked about was Chicago at Arizona. It's another meaningless game for this season, but nice to see Chicago progress even more. They're at 6 wins now. They're probably going to get to 7.
Are they progressing, or is this fool's gold? Because we've seen teams that'll do this we've seen quarterbacks that literally will keep Daniel Jones, as an example, keep getting jobs because they finish out strong. And so you think, oh, that's what we did with Justin Fields last year and to Justin Fields this year. Oh, this will be the year. Then he struggles and everybody's like, oh, he's gone. They're going to draft Caleb Williams or, somebody. And now all of a sudden you're starting to hear, well, you know what? They could take those picks and use them to build around him. I like him. I think they should. But because I think you've got to at some point plant your flag somewhere. Starting over every 5 years, I know it can be done now. Yep. I just don't think it's good. I don't think that's going to ever find you a winner.
So closing out the NFL show, I just want to say that Chicago is one of 24 teams still eligible for the playoffs with 2 weeks to go. It's going to be a wild finish. Only 8 teams eliminated. Only 4, 5, 6 teams have clinched playoff spots. So this weekend is going to probably eliminate another few teams and maybe clinch the playoffs for another few. I'm excited to watch it. There's some really good games coming up. Miami and Dallas are basically going to be in the best games this weekend on paper. Miami goes to Baltimore, and then Detroit comes to Dallas. So who do you have in those matchups?
All right, so let's just go ahead and go through all the best games and then the Texas games. We'll finish with the Texas game. So best games, Miami versus Baltimore. Is this game in Baltimore?
Yes.
Give me Miami. Who do you
have? Okay. That's pretty ballsy.
Really? I think that's a pick'em game, wouldn't you say?
I don't know. Miami, I mean, they just beat Dallas, and that was the first win against a team with a winning record this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
now they're playing the best team in the AFC. The record.
But is it a team? I mean, again, this part is because this is how good the AFC is. I love the Ravens, but again, when I'm just solely picking matchups, they don't overly scare you. Like there's nothing about them. I mean, they've got a great defense, but they don't have like, oh my God, they don't have 4 guys that scare you. On offense, it's Lamar Jackson. If he's on, okay, they're scary. If he's off, they struggle. They can't keep a running back healthy. I don't know. I think there's literally somebody, Tanya Harding or someone, just every night because these like they sign. It's like, hey, today the Baltimore Ravens have signed Emmitt Smith Monday at 2 a.m. Monday at 4 a.m. Emmitt Smith tore his ACL and will not be playing the rest of the year. I mean, that's just that they have the worst luck. So again, Baltimore doesn't scare me.
I'm gonna go with Baltimore.
I have no problem. I think it's a pick'em game.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, KC.
KC.
Yeah, I think. Look, Browning's been fun, and I think that at times he can sling it. But I feel like Kansas City is a better defense, and I feel like Kansas City needs a win.
Yeah.
Jets, Cleveland. That's more for Cleveland. Give me Cleveland, but I think this will be one of the Joe Flacco bad games, and I think this will be like a 19-17 type win for them.
Yeah, Jets have a really good defense, so I could see them causing confusion for Flacco.
Oh,
but I will also pick the Browns.
All right, Vegas versus Indy, the game of. And speaking of, we talked about the game, but Las Vegas is sitting there with a playoff spot. If they went out, and they don't even need a ton of help. If they went out, and I think they maybe need 1 or 2 very possible things to happen, and they're playing Indy, and these 2 teams from week to week can look like, man, they can beat anybody to, man, anybody can beat them. Atlanta beating Indianapolis didn't shock me, but them beating them 29-10 did shock me.
It's like I said, Falcons played mistake-free football at the quarterback position. It shouldn't. I don't think it should have been that big of a blowout. But I'm going to pick the Raiders in that one. I'm really liking what Pierce is doing. I hope the Raiders give Antonio Pierce the full head coaching job, remove the interim tag from him. And then the Colts, they're still fighting for the South title. The Jaguars are reeling. The Texans are banged up. So,
and to be fair, Jacksonville's reeling because they're banged up as well. It's not like the issue with Jacksonville this year is you're going to look at Lawrence's numbers and think he's been bad, he hasn't. He's just not been needed until now. You're realizing, oh, Etienne had space because Lawrence is at least a threat, and they have two, but they're without two wide receivers. Lawrence is banged up. For me with Tennessee, Houston, we'll go ahead and talk about that one because you brought it up. I don't know if I can trust Houston without CJ Stroud. I know they beat Tennessee a couple weeks ago, but that was so flukish. Yeah. Like, that was such a weird game. Well, Tennessee's always in these games. Nobody's talking about that Tannehill played last week.
Yeah. So, Levis was out. Tannehill was in. Now, was Levis knocked out of the game?
I don't even know. That was, I will admit, Christmas Eve red zone at my parents' was a little different. Talking and missing stuff, just be like, oh crap, what? And my parents who've never watched red zone beginning, I got to tell the story real quick. I'm like, hey, we're gonna do this. This is what Noah and I do when we watch football, and it's not the Cowboys. So I turned it on. 5 minutes into it, both of them hate it. I can't tell what's going on. I can't tell, what's going on in the game because they're bouncing around. 45 minutes in, hey, wait, when are they going to go back to the other one? It's 3rd and 2. I want to see what they're going to do. So again, converting red zone people. But I don't know if he started the game or if Tannehill came in, but Tannehill looked pretty good. That was a weird game because it felt like Tennessee was dominating, yet they couldn't never. And that's been Tennessee's issue, I guess.
So Will Levis, he played last week and then he sprained his left ankle. So that's why Tannehill's starting.
I got you. Right.
This week. Tennessee's hung in some of these losses, and like you said, I mean, it's kind of just this one was, it could have went either way, but it was just a close loss, another home loss that was close. That's just a lost season. Now this is a head coaching job that'll be pretty interesting. Do you think they keep Mike Vrabel?
I don't think they should. I don't know. I think he's lived off a fluke AFC title run that he's taken a team that was Super Bowl worthy and coached under them. And I don't think he's a terrible coach. Well, actually, I do. I actually do think he's a terrible coach. Like if Dallas were to pick him up, which I'm 100% sure in 5 years, Mike Vrabel will be the Cowboy head coach. I will realize, okay, we're about to tear it down and start over. I just think he gets very overrated. Point though, going back to that, can I say this? Looking at the schedule, okay. Dear NFL, everything about this schedule looks great. You got lucky Miami and Baltimore, Cincinnati, Kansas City. And then you throw a playoff game, two teams needing to win to make the playoffs in Pittsburgh versus Seattle.
Yeah.
Can we please stop the interconference game should end. Like Thanksgiving weekend should be the end of and that would actually be kind of cool. Make it a big thing. Like this is the end of AFC versus NFC. The rest of the year it's AFC versus that's more enjoyable. And I know this game matters as far as if you tie, but then if it becomes a tiebreaker thing outside of record, it literally falls to almost the last tiebreaker. So the game can either be 100% very, very important or 0% important. And just stop doing that. Make December be about conference battles. Make that part of your marketing. December, it's the Eagles, the Redskins. Whoa, it's the Eagles, the Cowboys, it's the Niners, the Rams. All month long. Instead of you got Pittsburgh versus Seattle in a rematch of the worst Super Bowl. Even more worse than I don't know. Rams Patriots is pretty damn bad too.
I almost want your former teammate Terrence Shaw was on that team.
Well, no, I meant the last Rams Patriot game.
Oh, the one we watched.
The last Super Bowl. Yeah.
2018 season.
Yeah. The worst Super Bowl. The Stro basically kept us there that night. That was the first Super Bowl I was ready to check out on. Even the blowouts, at least, are more interesting than that.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, I just lost my train of thought. I had something good I was going to say.
Choo went off the track. Because no smoking crack. Detroit Dallas, give me a prediction.
Oh, I was going to say, I think they should start and end the season with divisional games.
That's what you and I said. I don't know if I want to start this. I hate starting the season with divisional games. I actually feel like you should do it like old school, where your AFC games are all played at the beginning of the year. Yeah. Then you do a round of division. Then you play your NFC opponents, and then you go back to your division. I do feel though that by December, I wouldn't have a problem with it ending like the last week and all be division games. But I definitely think that by December you should not be playing against the other conference. It should only be NFC versus NFC, AFC versus AFC. I just think that would be. I mean, the football's still great, but I just think that would be so intense that, and also maybe they do the soccer thing instead of just the last week. In the soccer thing is they basically start almost every game at the same time. That way nobody knows what's going on. So if a team is losing and they're going to lose their stuff and they quit, that it won't affect. Right? Maybe do that from week 6, 15, 16, and 17.
Man, but it would kind of suck though in the case that you won't have 7 hours of football before the Sunday night game. So
they do, you don't have to start them all at noon. You can stagger them. Yeah. Where you're still starting a couple at 3, but you're getting like the majority, like you start them at, because that's how soccer does it. Soccer doesn't just start all of them at the exact same time. I say soccer, EPL, different leagues do it a different way, but every soccer league, the last day, everybody plays the last time at the same time. So you don't have any kind of score things and all that. You don't have to start necessarily all at noon, but like some of them at noon. Some of them at 1, some of them at 2, some of them at 3, and then you get a little bit better staggered time. But that one, that's a fine little small thing. I do think a bigger thing is make the division or conference games only through the last,
I'd be okay with that.
And I think it'd be more enjoyable. Because I get tired of like Dallas playing the Giants and being done with them, but then like Philadelphia getting the Giants 2 of the next 4 weeks, Tennessee getting Houston 2 of the next 4 weeks. That's just a weird thing. But anyway, Dallas, Detroit, give me your pick.
Dallas, I think they pull away in the second half. I think they win by a couple of touchdowns. So I'm thinking 28-13.
I see this being one of the times this year. I thought it was going to be the Miami game, but Dallas hasn't had that game where they're down 2 touchdowns in the first half and they come back and kick a field goal to win it. I feel like this might be it. Detroit's good enough. Their offense is good enough. I could see them jumping out to 21-3 lead. But then in the second half, that pass rush started to get to Goff, and then Dallas started to establish things. I think it'll be a fun game, but I like Dallas. And then Tennessee, Houston, who do you have?
I got Houston. I think they bounce back, and I think they get in position where they get to 9 wins, successful first year, whether they win the division or not, or make the playoffs or not. I got Houston. I think it'll be an ugly game, like 19-14.
If C.J. Stroud wins, I have Houston. If C.J. Stroud doesn't win, I have Tennessee.
Okay.
Other than that, anything else you want to say?
I mean, I'm excited for 2 more weeks of football. I'm excited for the college football playoffs next week.
Yep.
I'm excited for 1 year about Drink the Coverage on L4. It's been a great year. I'm just looking forward to the rest of the regular season and playoffs.
And then we immediately roll right after the Super Bowl into our off-season stuff, and we're going to be again talking a little bit more about that. We are going to do something on the '97 Heisman. Of course, we have the league season 4 going to drop. Probably, I now have a better admiration for the last couple seasons of the league, so I think I can split them into one episode per season. I think we can do that. I have a newfound appreciation for it after I just went on a deep dive one night about a month ago, listening to them talking about the last couple seasons and a lot of issues, not with each other, but scheduling. Nick Kroll was getting big, and Taco. There's a reason Taco wasn't on like there, and I found out that's why Rafi was brought on like he was, is because Taco was doing more stuff and concert, and his schedule wasn't, and that made me understand a little bit more, and that getting away from football. Anyway, point is, I've outdrank the coverage. I think it's nap time at noontime in the studio. Until next time.
My tea.
There you go. Hey, yeah, it's cozy weather. Until next time, that's it. Third Doe. I'm Terry Bennett. This has been Grandeur Pet Solutions. Out. Drank the coverage right here on L4 Media.